Ever wonder how your laser cutter works? In this video, we'll look at what is responsible for the magic behind your laser cutter. Now let's learn the basics of how the laser cutter works. Laser cutters are computer numerical controlled machines, or CNC for short. They use the heat of the laser beam to vaporize material. This is different from other CNC machines like the CNC router that physically removes material using a router bit. Of these two machines, each has its advantages and disadvantages. CNC routers work on the X, Y, and Z axis and therefore can create three-dimensional engraving, while laser cutters can only work on the X and Y axis. With CNC routers, the amount of material removed is determined in part by the width of the bit, making the loss consistent and at a 90-degree angle. The bit can be programmed to cut on, inside, or outside of the line. Laser cutters, on the other hand, cut on the line, and because they remove material with heat, the loss can be more or less depending on the thickness and density of the material. When cutting thick material, there is a slight taper to the edge. The bit width limits how fine the CNC router can cut, and often results in rounded inside corners. The width of the laser beam, on the other hand, is 1/1000th of an inch, allowing for finer cuts and sharp inside corners. I know, you came here to learn about laser cutters, and I'm talking about CNC routers, but it's important to understand the difference between heat and mechanical removal. The use of heat is what allows laser cutters to do what other CNC machines can't, but it also creates some issues that we will have to problem solve later. The most common laser cutter is the CO2 laser. It cuts organic materials such as paper, wood, acrylic, leather, and fabric. Side note, if you want to cut metal, you'll need a fiber laser, which uses a different wavelength. It is activated using optical fibers and rare earth metals. Different machines are needed for cutting and engraving. While fiber lasers are starting to become smaller and more affordable, they are still primarily found in industrial settings. When I need to laser cut metal, I use Send Cut Send. You can find the link below. CO2 laser cutters create the laser beam by running electricity through a tube containing CO2 gas. Mirrors are used to direct the beam into the laser head where it is reflected through a lens. The laser beam is hourglass in shape, and the place where it is at the smallest is called the focal spot. To focus the focal spot, a focal tool is used to manually focus the beam in relationship to the thickness of the material. Some laser cutters automatically focus based on the material selected. Computer code, or G-code, is used to program the movement of the laser head. It is also responsible for some subtleties in the power and speed settings. For example, it will adjust the power when it needs to slow down to cut a curve, and give a little extra juice at the start of a cut when the laser is weaker. When purchasing a laser cutter, you are not only buying the machine, but you are also buying the quality of the G-code. Now that you understand the basics of how the laser cutter works, we'll take a look at what it can do in the next video.
Before you leave, share something you've learned in the comments.